Yes, no, I agree. It would be nice to have everyone together. As a CFCHE House is one of the leading organizations doing intentional work in community health and focused violence prevention. But like what a lot of people don't know is CFCHE House is just a building. You know, it is a cultural hub. What our sister Marvette was saying in the audience is there are several different organizations that are represented, several different entities that have been trained in our CHBPP program. It's been about for 5 years now, and it would be nice to have all the organizations together, because one thing that is currently facing all of our organizations is the same issues as facing CFCHE House. Like, where's the funding coming from? Who is cutting us checks? Who is not cutting us checks? And, you know, are we applying for grants? Like, is someone doing private donations? I mean, like, the 47th administration has like a rich BFF that just paid the military. So my question is, does anybody have a rich daddy or an uncle, a mamacito we can call? There's a lot of organizations struggling, especially after our last session actually just informed us. Well, and when I say informed, not everyone's connected to local politics, because life be lifing. I told y'all that yesterday. I will beat that drum every day. Life be lifing. So sometimes, like Sister Tiffany Gregg said, or Crip said, you got to plug out. You got to plug out of the news. You got to plug out of the community. Sometimes you just got to take care of yourself. But the reality of the situation is the endowment just cut all the funding for nonprofits and organizations in town. Yeah. Like, Angie, you know I travel a lot with work, so like I feel like I got one foot in Wilmington, and then like 90% of my body is like hanging across the state. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the endowment came from the sale of a hospital that belonged to the people. The creation of the endowment, including the community advisory panel that they've had like so many different directors and like cycled through community members for, that was established so that money would make it to the people. And then we're in the year of our Lord 2025, whoever Lord you pray to, and the people are straight up told you're not getting any of their money. And when I say the people, I mean the organizations, the nonprofits. The majority of them are founded by the people who live here. Right. Like traditional Wilmingtonians, like people who have like transplanted and built their family here, their life here, like created their legacy here. We are part of these communities. We're advocating, fighting, and living in these communities. And again, this caught me off guard because I'm not home a lot. But we, the people, were straight up said you're not going to be funded by something that belonged to you, was promised to be paid out to you. Like, I know the teachers aren't getting their money, and that's a huge issue I have because I work with the Educators Union. NCAE, shout out, you pay my bills, but also you give me an opportunity to pour into my activism and fight for public schools, something I care deeply about. Like, I'm a product of public school. My mother was a teacher. I taught at DC Virgo when I first graduated. Like, I will beat that drum, and I'm grateful that I have a job that allows me to do it. But the endowment's also not paying the educators, and there was a check that was promised to go directly to our school system. Right. So I'm really confused as to like why all this money is here, and there are receipts written, but the people can't get the money from the bank. Like, what is that about?
Right. Well, how many of the people in the community who are actually sitting on those boards with their input too?
Again, there is a community advisory panel who thankfully portion of some of those members are in the community, in these organizations that are getting cut off, and that's the only reason why we're finding out about it. They're bringing the message to the community. They're bringing the message to the centers, to forums like this, because you know, again, the endowment is not tooting this from the horn. They're not standing on the bridge, beating their chest saying we're cutting your money. It's members finding out and bringing that information and making sure we're educated and in place to advocate and demand. But Angie, again, I'm asking you, how is that even possible? Like, I just laid out this whole 3-tier step that my community, all the nods, like, I feel like you guys agree. The hospital was ours, we the people. The endowment was created to pay we the people. And now the endowment is saying we the people get nothing. Right. Well, how make that make sense?
I mean, thus far with the endowment, it looks like the biggest entities that have benefited are the hospital and Cape Fear Community College and UNCW. And so those people have
I love UNCW and Cape Fear, don't get me wrong, but those universities and colleges are going to be funded. Yes. So like, I respect that. Again, support education, support public education. Yes, ma'am. I'm an alumni of UNCW, and they hit me up every month asking for a donation.
Guaranteed funding.
Wait, hold on, say it again.
They get guaranteed funding.
So the colleges are going to get their bills paid, right?
Yeah. And then, 100%.
Also, calling out UNCW, sorry, because we're on the funding of UNCW, when the 47th administration threatened to cut funding if you don't take DEI and cancel like student protests, UNCW jumped in line. So again, UNCW, I alluded at our little check-in, do better. Your alumni demand you to do better. The Black and Brown, the marginalized, the LGBT community that paid our dues to go to your school demand you to do better and to stand up to the 47th administration. We belong. We deserve to feel safe here. And right now, your student body does not feel safe, protected, seen, or heard. But why is the endowment paying their bills?
Good question. And because you and I both, like, the school system is something very near and dear to our
Public
hearts,
school system, you
right?
guys. The public school system. Let's just
Right.
clarify.
So the school system was short this year on their budget, right? I mean,
Hella
we almost
short.
lost like a pre-K center, like. and
Intentionally,
it's
they
still-
tried to, we didn't almost lose that. The city intentionally tried to shut down a pre-K center,
Right.
and they used money as a reason. So they went to the historically African-American school and attempted to shut it down. If it was really about money, they could have went out to Carolina Beach and shut down that, because that land alone would have paid the city's debt. So let's put it into context. The city tried to shut down an African-American preschool due to funding shortage.
Correct. And so I mean, we cut like a great deal of social workers. So like
And EC teachers?
Yes.
Well,
so
teachers
social
assistants, excuse me,
workers-
ECTAs.
True. And then, so social workers in schools are carrying caseloads of like 400 kids. That's impossible to do.
Yep.
I mean, some schools are sharing social workers, and who are those schools sharing social workers and nurses and counseling?
The Title I
Those are,
schools.
yeah, exactly. The ones that need them the most, the ones that are in our very community.
Like
actually.
literally in our community, the ones that are in our downtown areas, the ones that are walking distance so that the mother who might not have access to a vehicle can get her child safely to school. The ones who has the auntie in the community that's like taking the entire cluster of them after school because we know the parents might have a second or a later afternoon job. Also, the ones who are forcing their bus drivers to also double as a cafeteria worker or a custodian just to make the rent paid, and they're not getting paid as the individual jobs that they're doing. They're getting lumped under one. So again, going back to systemic issues like these families are dealing with and the funding cuts, we see where the impact is happening. Yes, it's a statewide issue, but also here in New Hanover County, it's a centralized issue of specific schools, specific demographics that are being targeted intentionally.
For sure. And going back to the endowment, like the school board asked for very little from that. So they asked for 42 positions, specialist positions that would basically address like the achievement gap. So focus heavily on truancy, but supposedly other things. And so they got a quarter of that. And so now we get to pick and choose. And what happens again? The same thing Lily just said. It's the school, because we won't have a specialist in every school. So like the endowment, like that's chump change out of what they like given.
But also
like,
the endowment promised to pay the schools some money, and it still hasn't been cut.
Yes.
Yeah, so clearly there has to be improvements with how the endowment, and I imagine they are. It's something I would be doing something to clearly identify an issue that's legitimate. But I guess my question would be, so the endowment's been around for 5 years.
Yep.
Right? And I think, Angie, you've been advocating at the school board for how many years now?
Like 25 years.
25 years, and in various times, it's probably one of the most animated and aggressive and politically charged spaces, right?
Oh yeah, school board is
inside of
insane.
in our local politics, right? And is it fair also to say that there's also been some systemic, right, incapacity to actually prioritize the teachers, prioritize the various things we're talking about? While there's been resources, like there's been deliberate decisions not to prioritize, right, money for over a few decades, right, in the same places. So I just want to be clear that yes, I think that individuals need to say, hey, endowment, that's your job, is to say, do better, right, we need these things, but I think it's very important that you can't take the actual responsibility, because endowment's not going to take the responsibility off of actual entities that also have resources that are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
County commission.
Right, you know what I'm saying? And we know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing because, again, it's the most politically charged environment. The people have been advocating, right, demanding, and they've still been receiving a systemic, like, no, or a systemic, I'm not prioritizing. Right, so I just want to make sure as we're thinking about this, we're talking about chasing the money, right? Because even if the endowment was to invest fully in what they asked for, you admit that what they asked for wouldn't solve the problem altogether.
No,
so
it'd be a general Band-Aid.
Right, the prioritization of that particular entity who has resources, and what are they doing with their resources? I just want to kind of put that back out there, you know what I'm saying, for us to kind of keep everybody
zoom out
keep
a
their
little
post
bit.
from the endowment. Everybody should keep their
Yeah.
energy on, holding them accountable, celebrating them when they do good, and saying, hey, that's good, but that right there is terrible, right? And we need you to do better on that. But I think it's going to be really important, because I'm going to tell you what's happening. there's a scapegoat, you know what I'm saying, type of mindset, not amongst us, but if you notice, the reason why the actual county, right, decided to actually completely defund all non-agency funding is scapegoat. What did they say? Hey, go eat.
Yeah.
Right? And my attitude that even if you actually do that, right, you're still basically saying like when you was giving non-agency funding, you wasn't giving us a whole lot in the first place. Your level of distribution to actual non-right government entities to support infrastructure, to build capacity inside these communities and support these non-for-profits that's doing work that you need to be doing too, right? You never really prioritize them fully. Right? And max you can get with 50,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You say organizations, and many of them are getting only
50,000 would be
20,000,
amazing.
18,000, some are getting 10,000.
Yeah.
Right, so I want to be clear for everybody in the room, as we begin to look at the endowment, right, it's very important that we don't forget that the actual county itself, right, in any part of this country, right, money goes to people, the most money is federal, and then you got state, and then at the state level, you have county, and then you have the city. So any local environment, your county is always the #1 funded entity to actually govern and to provide resources inside of our community. And right now, they completely pulled all the way back.
Yeah.
So to put that out there, as you know, you guys know, I love the advocacy and whatnot. I just want to make sure that we man down. And this right here is a major advocate of education. So she will she was zoned out, and that's good.
I will. I care about the kids.
For sure, for sure. So no, that's a good point because I mean I think we skipped right into endowment when if we're
Laid the
being
blame.
fiscally responsible, there is an entire budget for different entities. Obviously, Lily and I are very focused on like the school system, but I mean I've sat for 27 years through those budget conversations and when they submit that budget, and so I feel like I know it like my own. And yeah, there are decisions there that aren't fiscally responsible. For example, they do have control of their own budget, and if we're being honest, New Hanover County does get a sizable budget for their school system in comparison to some others.
Yeah.
But the way that they prioritize it could be looked at more closely, could be criticized, and so I'll be that person to throw it out there. I mean, it was their decision what positions get cut. So do we cut a top-heavy district? Or do we cut student-facing positions?
Yep.
And what they chose to do was cut
Student-facing
student-facing
positions.
positions, and that's going to have a negative impact, you know. And like even when they went, you know, they didn't want to go back to the county, which that's your tax money, by the way. They didn't want to go to the county. They didn't want to ask to supplement their budget, and the county countered and said, "Well, you guys are irresponsible," and they're not wrong. I mean, they said, like, you guys spent an insane amount of money on litigation. This county alone, like, if you look at all the counties in North Carolina, we have 4 firms that we contract with in this county alone. Like, most school systems don't have that. Why do we have that? Because we have a lot of lawsuits. You guys just saw them settle a multi-million-dollar sexual assault suit. There are so many lawsuits that you don't hear about in the media. So that's your money going to litigation right there. We have the largest contract with law enforcement of any school
Which
system.
makes no sense.
No, yet we had some of the most unsafe schools when you compare them to other schools in New Hanover County. So is that working? No. We're a very reactive school system, so we throw funding there and not proactively. We don't support teachers. We wait till like harm is done, till they're hurt or they're just done teaching and leave the field entirely. And so all of
even
those
like
things,
prioritizing money for like the buildings and just like systems like that. Like a lot of our
Absolutely.
buildings are falling apart. Like New Hanover was
100%.
closed for a while because it literally was falling apart. So then
Literally,
you had to like bus those students like across the county.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I had a question like, why don't, it sounds like they're not listening to community voices or the people that are impacted. So like, what is stopping them? Like, what makes them think that maybe because they have the money that like they can just look at whatever they think is right? But like, what's stopping them from talking to people, I guess, or is that your impression of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It's okay.
I think that it's a valid point. And even, you know, Abdullah alluded to this. When I first started doing advocacy, there were like 6 of us in the audience at school board meetings, sometimes not that many. Like, they just did their thing. We just basically watched. Over the last year, we meet capacity. I mean, 170 people can fit in that room, and they closed it off. So there's a lot of people that are using their voice that never have before. There are a lot of grassroots organizations.
We love our children, the teachers union, yeah.
Absolutely, educational justice. There's a whole bunch
New Hanover
of
for All.
different, New Hanover. There's a lot of different advocacy. So there is a lot of people advocating. They're just not listening. It's a very political agenda. Like again, a lot of school systems across the county, they are not even partisan. They don't run on a party. They're just nonpartisan. Why is education and safety and things like that? It really shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? We are very divided here. Right now we have a very Republican, it's 5-2 controlled board. And so there is like a higher agenda. So things that were funded, I mean, we used to fund equity, diversity, and inclusion. We used to,
They intentionally took it out.
100%. We used to fund, a whole Title IX department based on that lawsuit, so that we could protect kids from gender-based harassment, from protect our LGBTQ kids, protect from sexual assault, so we don't repeat and we don't have to spend all that money that we're spending on litigation.
Yeah.
And you would think that they would learn from these things, but they don't, because
Sounds like
they're
a long-term
political.
impact.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that, I mean, that's their motivation. Lily and I were talking about this the other day, like the people that you see on the school board, they don't have education degrees, they don't have mental health backgrounds degrees.
Kids in schools.
Yeah, they don't even have, they're not even invested really,
No.
so,
Like they literally don't have a dog in the fight.
Absolutely. And you certainly don't see representation that looks like
Yeah.
our kids from our community up there. I mean, like, we have a very white everything except city council newly,
Thankfully.
I mean, but yeah, it is. And so the voices are there,
Yeah.
the points are being made, it makes sense, but they're not listening to the voices because they have their own political mindset. In fact, I don't think I've missed a call to audience to address the school board the whole time I've been doing advocacy, and they're pretty blatant in our face that they're not listening. They're on their phones and stuff like that. So
Like they have their own private agenda, and like Bill was saying, like they're trying to like fund different things. They want to channel the money to what leads to their situation. And I mean, not to like again continue on the school board tangent, but in state of North Carolina, like public schools been under attack, like intentionally under attack since 2013, and by a partisan situation, a partisan call. So the GOP has intentionally tried to defund, underfund, and cut it down. And so you said like we have a very, very like 5-2 school board with that same mental agenda. So they're intentionally taking the money and putting it elsewhere. Like they're intentionally trying to move it around because that is part of overarching plans. And then like the conversation that we had in the last session, the 2020 plan, there are things in place that outline like where things are going, the systemic attack, like breaking down. So none of this is by design. People are channeling money the way their party wants them to channel money.
Right, exactly. I mean, like it's no secret we're in a mental health crisis right now, so it's not even logistically, doesn't make sense to cut funding there, yet that's been a huge place that they
years of years.
I mean, all social emotional learning, all those kind of things gone, all prevention. We just cut like our it was growth and changes is what it was called, but they relabeled it like, sex ed and made it seem all work and whatever. Defunded that. Those are huge prevention programs. Like in New Hanover County, that is one thing. Our growth and changes and our family life program is one that, I mean, when Lily and I go across the state and train with other professionals, that they're actually envious of that. Like, how did you guys get that? And they just sliced it all up because, again,
it's like piecemeal that they pick what they wanted from it.
And they don't even know why.
So what are they putting money into? So we know that I saw that they're not investing,
Infrastructure, development.
I know right now they're doing a mental health landscape. So they're getting ready to invest in mental health. Right? They're doing a landscape on green spaces and recreational.
Infrastructure, like upscaling the communities.
We know that's going to be a dual, like a multi-faceted value in the sense that in one sense it's going to build economics, in another sense it's going to actually help with people being able to get out, being physically healthy,
and attract individuals to like move here.
Whatnot, but also attract people people to come to Wilmington. Right. The mental health piece or whatnot is a clear piece or whatnot. Literally, so they're doing this landscape, kind of analysis on mental health itself, right? Where is it at? What resource available? So clearly that's something that's going to invest in. And this is also, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I know two things is going to shift. The question is if it shifts the way that we need it to shift. Educational achievement and what do they call it? What do they call it? Assessment gaps? What do they call it?
Achievement gaps.
Achievement gaps is a major topic for the so-called, or what's referred to as a long-term generational vision. So
Yeah.
schools, I don't know if it's gonna look the way that we want it to look, right? Meaning they're taking some programs out and they're getting ready, and I don't know exactly when, to invest into programs. One of the things I think that's also happening is that, and it's at the expense of a lot of people, that divestment in community-based organizations, that money's gonna have to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right, in the county, they're gonna have to then begin to invest inside of actual, this is how it works, right? Usually when you have a place that's gonna be a driver for economics, they're gonna invest in 3 or 4 very key things, right? One is gonna be education. They're gonna have to do it because people are gonna wanna bring their children somewhere that they can actually benefit educationally, right? Other one's gonna be safety, and it's not gonna be community safety. It may have some component of that, but real in their mind, safety looks like, you know what I'm saying,
The
a very
policing.
robust, strong,
Yeah.
right, police department, infrastructure for just overall safety. And then obviously, infrastructure in terms of actual spaces, outdoor spaces, for making it welcoming for people to come in
Yep.
and be a third one.
Like greenways,
And
bike
mental health is
lanes.
something that is amazing that they're doing, right? Because that, you see that in all the other spaces. But when you have a divestment like that, I've never seen that, I've never heard, I'm pretty sure people have done it before, I don't know, or counties done it before. I begin to wonder then, because they're not disclosing it, where they're gonna then redirect that money. And I guess the question, and maybe you guys can open space so people know, or you guys may know as well, what is the actual prioritized investment? What are they tangibly putting money into right now? Like where's our money going?
I mean, I think that well, I'm gonna go back to what you first said when you were talking about like the achievement gap, because that is a big focus right now. But we know that there are factors around them achieving that goal that they're choosing not to invest in. One of those, mental health, some of the things that we were just talking about. But they're numbers, you know, like, and so they're looking at things like test scores and grades on schools and stuff like that. And that doesn't always like give the
Like a
full
full
picture.
picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I know that fits within the strategic plan of the city. And so that is where they're focusing a lot of the money. I guess like when you ask like where is the money going, I mean it's a good question, because that's where like the public has to hold accountable and say like where is the money that we used to spend on mental health. Like one of the positive things I will say with regard to the school system, and sorry I focus a lot on the school system because that's my wheelhouse, but we do have a very strong student support department in the school system. We were talking yesterday, reframing behavior is about to be rolled out. But again, like we change programs every 1 to 2 years. So then we have to invest a whole lot of money in training an entire staff all over again. I mean, we have 16,000 kids in our school system. That's a lot of money, right? And we keep doing that over and over and over again, as opposed to letting that really strong student support department actually do their job and help, you know, kids and be in classrooms and things like that. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
Investment in like, so what's the landscape for health services here? So we know we have 2 Michael Jordan free clinics.
They're just open.
Med North, which is a significant expansion. And these are all like entities that's like privately, like obviously Med North is federal funded, they probably figure out some other things and
Like
whatnot.
clinic stuff.
But is the actual county, is the city, are they actually collaborating, are they investing resources to build infrastructure for health? You know what I'm saying, for like health services, for, you know, are there any resources being allocated there? Any interest in that type of area of focus that we know of?
I mean, obviously there's the expansion with a lot of, you know, not per se, like that area in Scotts Hill, there's a big expansion there, you know, they have a whole brand new cancer wing there, they're in the process of, you know, opening up like surgical wings, so I guess there's an expansion there. Even within the school system, we do have contracts that are pretty solid with Coastal Horizons, so we have the Watt clinics that meet like the health needs on school campuses, and I mean that is a big thing, because not only
helps a lot.
like physical health but mental health too, whereas there's waiting lists and stuff for kids at other places. There's waiting lists on those too, but it's a little bit shorter, and it's
Right there in the school, so they can get to it, they're already at school, they don't have to like travel a hurdle to get to the clinic and stuff like that, the services are there.
Yeah.
What about food? Is there any what's the food infrastructure here in the city? Is there, we know we have like the food bank and different other like North City. And those are all entities that's getting grant funding, they're also getting funding maybe from the endowment for sure, they was propped up from Healthy Opportunities Pilot. But again, talking about public funds, right? Is the county supporting and reinforcing, or have they, that we know of, is any prioritization for food, right, in general?
So that's a good question too. We, for the last, since Florence, I believe it is, we have 19 schools, I think, and there's 42 traditional schools altogether in New Hanover County. 19 of those schools are schools where every kid in that school receives free and
Reduced lunch,
lunch.
19.
How many schools and how many receive it?
There's 42 altogether.
And 19 that receive that. And
Okay,
so, and
less
that
than
is,
50%.
that's without,
Yep.
those kids don't, we do have them, fill out the application form and all that for data, but they don't need that. Every kid, no questions asked, like,
Out of those
they're
19 schools?
in just those schools, yes.
Okay.
And so, and then, like, in our other schools that are outside of that, they can still apply if they're eligible. But here's the thing, like, our school board is opposed to that.
Yeah.
Like, they
The
could
current
stand
sitting
up
board.
for us to continue, so that's gonna go away, actually. And like, in the next school year, we won't even have that, so we'll be back.
You said we won't have.
Those 19, the 19 schools currently, every single student in there receives free and reduced lunch. Like, there's no questions. Like, yes, you can fill out the application, but just like off gate, those schools, you're going to get food. But the school board currently voted against it. So next school term, there's 19 schools. It's not going to be automatic. It's just going to go back to that application
So you want
situation.
people to actually get, you want people to see
Yeah.
applications?
Because
Yeah.
we get that money.
You said the school board is opposed to it. Is it a debate about it, or is it like absolutely they all agree this is not something that's good?
No.
I think they said, what,
It's
one
not that they
person?
all agree,
One or
there's
two
two,
people?
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously Judy Justice and Tim Merrick are.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
big
the only two that are
advocates for
pro
And
it.
it's not even something that they control, because that money comes from the state, right?
Oh, okay.
But they don't want to advocate for it. They choose.
So they could
the
have an
other
influence on
five.
it. They could choose to advocate. They could choose to like go to the higher ups and be like, no, we want to fight for this. But the 5 out of the 7 are saying they really don't care to fight for it.
Yeah, like, I mean, they have a very skewed vision of what that even means. Like, even right now with the SNAP cut, I mean, that's gonna dramatically affect
Impact
our
a
kids
lot
at
of our
school,
students,
you
yeah.
know? Like you said, like Nurse and C, they're amazing. They do the
But also they're already
backpacks
gonna be
and all
overtapped.
stuff. Right, but how, I mean, and then if we lose that, like some of our kids, the only 2 meals they get are breakfast and lunch at school, you know? And so if we lose that, on top of families losing SNAP benefits, like, all of those things can be catastrophic, and there's like,
And to be clear though, that's an issue of advocacy, not necessarily an issue of allocation of funds. They don't have control of those funds. It's a state funded thing, right? It's not from the county funds.
yes, it is a state funded thing, but at the same time, like,
They could choose to
yeah, they could
supplement it. A lot of
definitely-
locals
right.
are choosing to supplement it, but the county, so it's a yes and situation to your question. They should 100% advocate on the state level to keep that money, but they can also choose to allocate funds to that, like, but they're choosing not to because it's a deprioritization.
And just also to be clear, right, and people don't talk about this, but like with our demographics are like what, close to like 200,000, right? We have like 3 very big food like centers here.
Yeah, we do.
in the city. And we're actually
Emergency, we think,
distributing not only food for people here, we're distributing it for people across other counties.
Yep.
So I think a lot of times we also have to think about when people are doing demographic analysis and they're doing resource analysis, those type of things come up, right? On the question, but it should negate the fact that, it's an advocacy thing. You should see the value,
Yep.
right, and want to advocate on the state level for that. But I can also see why
Care.
they may not prioritize resources to supplement that, since there is a significant amount of actual food access here in the region. Again, I guess for me, I think for everybody, the question for all of us is, if they're not, in that case right there, it's like, where is the money? Right? It's almost like the biggest question is us not knowing where the money's going, right? Because again, it's like.
I feel like there's not a whole lot of transparency about like that,
yeah,
and
you
that's
have
like
to
a
work
reoccurring
hard.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
like it's intentionally non-transparent, excuse me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, like, of what I have been able to see, like with the recreational opportunities, they chose a company that's not even based here. It's like in Apex, North Carolina, and they like go up and down the coast, and they specialize in like maps. Like they're not even like looking, like they're supposed to do community impact, but
Yeah.
like they're engineers. They're not evaluators or like community focused mindset. So it's just like they're choosing to put the money somewhere else when I'm sure there's been applications like transparency me being one of them, like who's based in the county, I would put money back into the county for what they would give to me to do the work.
Yeah.
But they're just choosing not to do it, which is insane because it's just a cycle of growth if they've like
Just investment in organizations that they know rather than, we were talking about that earlier, having like being intentional about where you're spending your money, like putting it back into the community. Like, you know, you have to try, like, I'm going to go to a local coffee shop, you know, I'm going to go to this local bookstore, you know, rather than, you know, the Walmarts, the Targets, et cetera, of that nature. Pouring your money back in here, investing in, like the fellows were saying, nonprofits and organizations that do this work representing Wilmington, building here in Wilmington, like that is a choice that they 100% could do, but they're like outsourcing money because it's a connection to some type of development that we know a lot of our elected officials are very connected to development, and that's where a lot of our money does go, is to like larger development, to like, you know, infrastructure, making Wilmington, you know, this next big tourist hotspot type deal, and it's been like it's been something that's very prevalent in our local politics for a while. Somehow, some way, almost everybody is associated with like development, and we've seen and know that Wilmington is exploding to accommodate all of the influx of not only just tourists but people relocating there. Sister Marvette, we'll start shifting.
Yeah, no, I just want to like respond really quick to what you said because it's an excellent point. It also helps them to not be transparent.
Yeah.
We bring in people who aren't from here who know nothing about it. We talked a little bit yesterday. When they did redistricting from our school, they paid a lot of money for a company called Proper out of Ohio who'd never even been to Wilmington.
You said
before.
something like this, that race doesn't have an impact.
Yeah, we had to do like, so
Yeah.
they put together an impact survey to gather information to help to inform them because they aren't from here and they don't know. And so on that survey, there was nothing about race. And we asked that question, and they're like, race doesn't even matter.
Oh my
Now,
God.
if there were a company in Wilmington
Yeah, they
that
would've known
were
the neighborhoods.
doing that same job, they would have said, race doesn't matter. But they can say that because to them it doesn't. They don't live here.
Yeah.
Like maybe it doesn't matter to them. But it certainly matters when you draw like lines in a county that is as segregated as this county is, and then you go to extra lengths to resegregate it even more, and that's what they did. And so they poured, not only did they do that, they weren't transparent, there's a whole list of things. They paid that money for those people to come here and stay forever. I mean, they were here forever with that whole thing, and they continue to seek them out. And then so this was the last redistricting. They've also consulted with them since then. And now their thing is, well, we can't really redistrict anymore because you guys just have too many kids. So you just need to build a school. But like what Lily was saying
We've
earlier,
been asking for a school, but that's not a new request.
yeah, and that is the thing. There is zero capital in our budget this year, zero. So that
Knowing,
means-
like, I want to say specifically, Lainey has been promised for a while to get a different school, and then Lainey would, you know, do like the middle grade. So it'd be like, you know, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then 10th, 11th would go to the different school, and then you would have the middle. So it would be like a way to transition and flow in that area, and that's something that's been requested and or vaguely promised for a while. And like I understand, like in the past, maybe, especially like we'll even take it as recent as COVID. There was a freeze on everything, building materials, like as far as resources inside and out. So I can understand like a stall in the executed promise. But here we are moving forward, and you didn't even attempt to budget. So there's not even a guise of, hey, we're going to give you a school. And that circles back into safety and the money that they're spending on like the officers inside of the school buildings. And then also like it's bigger than just like you don't have your Capitol building. That is a promise or a guise that we have no idea where the money is like getting allocated or going to. But it's a circle issue, you know, like, because then that justifies their need to spend more money on police officers and having SRO officers in school. That justifies their need to have, you know, more exchange tactics, like whatever, to de-escalate the safety in the school, because, you know, the students don't feel safe, the parents don't feel safe. Well, they don't feel safe because they're like overstuffed in a building where there's underfunded and the teachers have more holes than they don't. So like the safety issue is being blown out of context, but it's justification for them to reallocate funds rather than circling back around and addressing the real issue.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, that's definitely a huge thing with, you know, like 12 years ago, like Sandy Hook, after that happened, their group came here and they laid out a platform of what we could do for capital changes that would make our schools safer. Because when you look at the things that, like, law enforcement follows law
Yeah,
on the list,
that doesn't
right?
make you safe.
Law enforcement gives you more arrests
Yeah.
in a school, so that the illusion is that they're safer because of that, but it really doesn't impact the actual safety. But when we do things like just build, like instead of having our entrances like they were, like Lily brought up Laney, you go to Laney, they can't even see you. Like you can't, if you go into Laney, there's no shutdown in case someone were to, active shooter or whatever, were to come into the building where you can shut that school down. You're around the corner, and like, I'll be honest, ladies of school I go to most of all, and kids let me in all the time. They don't know who I am, you know, they just let each other, and they're on a bell schedule, which is very predictable, but I can go off on a tangent forever about that. But the thing is that was very simple things changes that they could have made. They could have used money to do that. 12 years ago we had that plan. They didn't listen. And then we invested, every year since, we've invested and we've upped that contract and law officers. And so,
and also like militarization of the police. And so like, I mean, like just talking about money going to officers, it's not just officers in the schools. Like every single year our police get like new like materials or a new budget for a car or like a new riot shield or like what in the world, or tanks or like tanks, and then like concussion grenades. It's like what in the world? Like what does Wilmington need all of that stuff? And I do hear like, you know, the illusion or like, Abdullah brought up the ports are open and they're active and there's a lot coming, so you know we gotta prepare for what's happening. Nothing like that is happening down there. There's absolutely no justification for like the over militarization, especially every single budgetary year in our police department. So that is somewhere where the money's going, and that part you can see. They're not transparent about it, but you know, like because of federal state system, they have to account for it. So you can see the money, and every single year you can see the police budget and the funding of the police budget go up and go up and go up. So the question about that is like, why? Because the crime hasn't gone up. You know, we're not like huge rioters. Our population hasn't like exploded through the roof, you know, but like the militarization of the funding, the money, that it continues to go up every single year. And money from schools go down, militarization cops go up, and that is something you can trail.
Absolutely. And really, you know, with a lot, like we do have some issues with safety on our schools.
Without a doubt. I mean, all schools do. Like I will never diminish that fact.
For sure. But like I will say that a huge percentage of that is overcrowding.
Yeah.
It's like not kids having gang wars and all that kind
They're
of stuff.
stuffed in a building, stepping on each other. They're emotional hormones. Like not saying they're hormonal, but they're emotional because of changing of hormones, and they're cramped in there. Again, they've got like 30 teachers not employed, so you've got like too many kids in a classroom. They get angsty and they fight because that's what 13 to 18-year-olds do. They are figuring it out. That doesn't make them bad kids. Right. That makes them little adults like learning to deal with emotions. But just shoved inside us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like she's right with the, you know, there's been a plan and it's changed around a lot. But Laney being the most overcrowded high school, I mean, there's 2,400 kids in that school. They got away with it for a really long time because they've been over capacity. This year, they're at fire code. So you can run a school over a capacity, you cannot run it over fire code. And so this year, they had to make some changes. Even last year, when they had to reroute 16 classrooms from New Hanover High School, where do those kids go? The two most crowded schools in the county, Laney and Hoggard. And so, so you know, again, no capital changes, no capital budget. And they've been telling us for years they're going to compact and move Trask to a different location and then spread Laney out. But even if you spread out a school, at what point is too many?
Because people keep moving here. That's the thing. Like we were saying, like they're making it pretty. They're giving us bike lanes. They're investing in the green space. We know the downtown is like you got like new boutiques and over on 16th and Queen, like the cargo district. There's a lot of money being poured into like, you know, like little neighborhood, you know, markets, pop-ups existence. On the waterfront, there's that whole apartment complex where they want businesses on the bottom, apartments on the top. So they are bringing individual entrepreneurship and they're bringing business. So people continue to move here, and that's where the money's going, is to make it more attractive for people to continue to move here, building and buying portfolios so houses are up to grade to get people to want to stay here, whether it's like their second vacation home or like I've just like relocated altogether. Like that commercialization, that beautification of Wilmington, that's a lot of our money, and it's not going back into the actual upkeep of the communities.
I was going to share with you this key. So again, three things I want you to pay attention to as you're thinking about tracking the money. If their strategic plan is a decrease in achieving gaps, and we know that anyone that moves here, they're not moving here without family.
Yeah, they're bringing their people.
Right, and clearly safety is a concern.
Police officers.
Just don't be surprised, like, when you find that education is your priority. There's no way for me not to prioritize education at some particular point. The question is when, and the question is how, and the question is how do we integrate ourselves into the actual conversation, whether from the inside or outside. I know, sometimes we do it outside and be loud about it, like you're doing now, right? And being like, hey, this is not. But if you look in the pattern and we're following the patterns, this is anybody, right? We're not gonna like it, right? In order for them to actually really invest in schools the way that they need to, right? With buildings and structures and more staff, they're gonna raise taxes.
Yeah.
They're gonna raise taxes, which makes sense because they're bringing people in with the money to raise the taxes for, which again is gonna marginalize certain people.
No.
Right?
Gentrification is gonna push us out.
Just thinking about, right, like the narrative and how we actually frame it and how we position ourselves, right, to understand, it's not, I agree, like, the collateral damage of the systemic, like, arrested, like, development, that's what's happened. Certain things have been deliberately not developed, right, you know what I'm saying, in order for it to be right and proper, right, you know what I'm saying, the proper time. Right?
Like they've held communities hostage until they're ready for that.
Until they're ready
Yeah.
for it, and it's most economically prosperous to do
Yes,
so.
sir.
Which is, again, we all acknowledge that we're living inside of the actual city that's prioritized economics.
Yeah.
Right, I'm saying, so, businesses, strategic, right? Businesses based off of, opportunity costs, right? In order to get this opportunity, it's gonna cost something. So schools, there's been at a cost, no way that they can continue functioning, right? What you just said to me, I've heard you say it before many times, right, Angie, but you said it just right now, and I thought to myself, that's a legal issue. Like, you're beyond, fire code capacity.
Yeah.
There's no way they're gonna keep that. Right, and all things considered, at some point, and they may be having those
They're gonna be held
conversations
accountable.
now, which means that we need to figure out how to actually integrate ourselves into those conversations, or force individuals to come have a conversation with us, we can actually have some say-so in the matter. If we don't have say-so in the matter, then the programs that's being defunded, right, they're gonna replace them with their choice of evidence-based programs. They're gonna replace them with their choice of the strategies that keep the schools safe, the strategies to actually address the needs in the schools. How to build the schools and where to build the schools at, right? I believe those conversations may be happening right now as we speak.
They're not being happening in the community. Like they're not happening transparently.
Let's be clear. We say community, and it's something I think that us here at Dakota House like to figure out. When we say community, right, are we talking about, right, historically marginalized communities, people we represent, we see every day in this environment? That's a very small demographic composite.
I agree with you.
Majority of Wilmington is white.
Yes.
Right? And they're having their conversations with their constituents. That's how they're doing what they're doing. So we have to kind of reframe that, hey, we want to be a part of that conversation. Yeah, you're having a conversation with a community, but not with this very specific community.
So that's what I mean when I say community, like physically out here, not
they say, like,
a demographic.
Like we're going off of input. We know what our community needs, right? And if you go off
But
of
they're not. They're being
demographics,
selected.
right?
Yeah, they definitely.
Yeah. So I guess my point. So how do we integrate ourselves? Two things. I'm not necessarily all with the integration, right? You know what I'm saying? So how do we? What's the better word? Because either you going in to talk or you bringing them to you to talk.
Well, I mean, so I think you can do both of it. I think you should. I think you have to do both of it. I do think, and to clarify, like when I was referring to community, I wasn't just speaking necessarily about the Black and brown marginalized community, that may be frequent in like circles. I'm talking about like the geological community, like physically where I live in, these like 20 blocks, whatever. Like if you're gonna make a decision on like the impact in my neighborhood, I want to be at that table, whether Black, brown, Asian American, transgender, whatever. Like if you're making a decision on the school district that my kid is going to or I go to, like I want to be invited. That's what I mean about community. Like the intentional physical blockage, like geographical community needs to be included on decisions being made. I agree with you. They are speaking to their specific constituents because they set up meetings and/or maybe our Caucasian friends have the ability to go to those meetings when they're being held, whereas, some of our marginalized individuals might not be. But secondly, I think you do have to go to those council meetings, or you have to go to the school board, also invite them to community conversations, town halls, where the meeting time and the location may be easier for our people and us to access. And again, when I'm saying our people, I don't just mean Black and brown people. I mean people who are invested in their community, because someone across from Hillcrest, they're going to care about what's happening in this backyard. They might not be as invested as what's happening on Carolina Beach Road. So physically comes to where it impacts. But all of that to say, like we, the community, have to intentionally vote to make sure that someone that represents our best interests is in the situation. Like you have to be part of the system to fix the system, not abide with it or go with it, but like to throw a wrench in the existing plan that we know is there and at least raise awareness of some shit that's going wrong to be able to advocate. Because you're right, the current elected officials, and since that's what we're speaking on right now, is that current elected body, they are talking to their constituents. Also, their constituents, their political spin right now is a 5-2 situation, so their constituents are not us, as in like more liberal, more, you know, community mutual aid, more like grassroots minded. Their constituents are predominantly like Republican and institutional, and they see the benefits that they get from like some type of structural situation. So they are talking to their folks.
Let's be clear though, right? It's very important to say, and I know you have hopefully an announcement, I don't know where you're at with that, with it, but you know what I'm saying? It's the type of actual people, not the parties. I'm gonna be honest.
Exactly, that's what's like more grassroots community minded.
Like the 2020 vision, right, was established with a predominantly democratic, you know what I'm saying, constituent political base. And the majority of this 20-something years has been predominantly democratic, right, governed and ran to push the 2020 vision, which has been a prioritization for economic development.
Yep.
Which has been an actual divestment in community-based programs in order to actually make populations vulnerable to allow for the displacement.
And
so it's not the party piece.
No, and that's where I was going. That's why, yeah, that's where I was going. That's why I said you have to get someone who's actually from your community, who's part of your community, who believes in your community, does that grassroots stuff. That's where I alluded to, like, actually from, and not, this is my own personal thoughts, not individuals just because they were born and bred in Wilmington, just because they come from the streets that they claim they advocate for, when they vote on policies and make blatant statements that go against everything they've come from, but people who are literally here every single day, talking, planning with, asking, sacrificing, but also not just sacrificing, but actually asking, like, what can we do? What can we bring? Intentionally building coalitions, knowing you can't do it by yourself. Like someone who's actually out here asking what needs to be brought here and then doing their damnedest to make a connection or find a resource or whatever they got to do to bring that attention to the insufficiency, and then also just bring in what they can, like including resources. And what you alluded to earlier, not someone who's doing it for name's sake, not someone who's just trying to be a career politician, not someone who wants to go down and like, oh my God, you guys are going to remember me forever and ever, but someone who's genuinely doing it because they give a damn about it, genuinely doing it because they want to see change, genuinely doing it because they know that this is what they can do in this moment. If all I do is I announce that I'm running for school board and I raise awareness of issues that the community is facing and I bring it to the forefront, even if I lose, then the constituents can say, Lily Nicole brought up that issue. Lily Nicole said something about this. Why are you not focusing on this? Because you know what? That actually made sense. Lily Nicole lives on the north side, on the south side. Lily Nicole actually has fought for it, invested in it, brought like attention to it. Why aren't you talking about that? Why aren't you circling back around? So someone who genuinely just wants shit to be better, that's who needs to be in office. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what letters behind your name. I don't care what party you represent. If you're not actually in the community, and I'm not talking about this fair weather canvassing, knocking on the door, raising awareness just because it's political climate, but the day in, the day out, regardless of your day job, like if you're not actually showing up, then I don't think you have my best interest at heart. Bottom line, I don't think you know anything about me. There's absolutely no way you can make any decisions on my behalf.
100%.
No way.
Follow that with the, like, what you said is true. I mean, we've had Democrats on the board. Again, I'm going to go back to
The Democratic Party has let us down just as much as the Republican Party. People who want to be politicians.
It is. But in answer to a question that you raised, two things I'll say. Like, when an issue affects a certain group of people, they show up for that issue, right? Full force. This happens every time. And by no means am I saying showing up at government meetings is the only way you can advocate. That's not everybody's wheelhouse. People do
There's a role for everyone.
Absolutely. But it's problematic when an issue that affects you or me or whatever, and everybody shows up full force for that, then when it's not you directly,
you don't show
up. And then here's another thing that I hate this about this city, but we have to play the game sometimes of like when I do advocacy work, we touched on this yesterday on PAC, like when I do advocacy work and sometimes it is a black family per se, and if that black father shows up at school, sometimes it doesn't, like there are limitations they place
They're
on them
not greeted
that
in the
they
same
don't
capacity.
do on me, you know? And like even when we go to school board, so people who don't have as much to risk need to step up and like be that person because
Use your privilege.
Exactly, 100%. And like because we really do have strength in numbers, we just don't use them right.
Because
Like,
we're not actually unified.
Yeah.
Like, you have to realize that the problem that you're struggling through right now is your neighbor's problem, but it's also your oppressor's problem. Like, nobody is benefiting from the current state of affairs in Wilmington, and like we keep saying, that is set up by design. So once you get that mentality out of your head and you're willing to fight for literally the definition of what's right, like, take all your opinions, take your political party aside, prioritize the issue, identify and prioritize the issue, you realize that all of us should be fighting with each other together. Like, collectively, we the people really do outnumber the billionaires and the millionaires and the corrupt individuals that are running our city. And we can come together and we can fight for a change. And I am getting told it's time. So before we leave, I wasn't facetiously alluding to running for school board. I 100% am running for school board because I do believe I've done the work and I want to be part of the solution. I truly believe I can help. And I want to use my position of privilege, the ability that I have to talk to different parties, to represent different individuals, and the connections I have grown from my community backing me for years and years and trusting me. Fuck it, I'm running for school board.
Yeah.
Yay.
Finally, one of us.
Finally, stop it. And on that note, we're moving to our next session. So happy Sunday, y'all. I'll see you in this very busy year.